Hi, and welcome to 647. 6 stories for 7 a.m. because there's a famine of truth in our land. And this is your quick news fix. And the truth starts now. Well, we've got 2 updates before we head into take 1. The first one is an update on Andrew Wolfe, the National Guardsman who was shot in D.C., and he is making progress. So please keep those prayers coming. He gave a thumbs up to the nurses. He wiggled his toes. The pressure in his brain has gone down almost to normal now from the gunshot wound. His vitals are all good. And so it's all moving in the right direction. Let's keep it going and have a Christmas miracle there. All right? Please support Andrew right now and his family. Also, other means of support. Gold popped back up. It's at close of business Monday, 4,232. Silver, last week it was like $42. Now it's 57.89. So gold especially, they're saying we're looking at 5,000 sometime next year. So that's all good. That's all good. All right, take 1. Treasury, a House panel launched probes into Tim Walz's handling of $1 billion food aid fraud, and they could make criminal referrals. Okay, that guy's just a bad guy. All right. A powerful U.S. House committee and the Treasury Department both launched investigations into Minnesota Governor Tim Walz's involvement in a massive fraud scheme that involves Somali immigrants bilking more than $1 billion from taxpayers, they revealed Monday. House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer, Republican of Kentucky, told the Post that his panel will conduct a thorough investigation into Governor Walz's failure to safeguard taxpayer dollars as a result. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz was warned about massive fraud in a pandemic food aid program for children, yet he failed to act. Instead, whistleblowers who raised concerns faced retaliation, Comer said. Because of Governor Walz's negligence, criminals, including Somali terrorists, stole nearly $1 billion from the program while children suffered. Good job, Timmy. As chairman of the powerful GOP-led panel, Comer can issue subpoenas and refer alleged crimes to the Department of Justice for potential criminal prosecution. Somebody do it. The DOJ has already convicted 59 fraudsters in the scheme. Also on Monday, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent posted on X that he had instructed his investigators to dig into how the feckless mismanagement of the Biden administration and Governor Tim Walz allowed tax dollars to be funneled to al-Shabaab terrorists over in Somalia and here. The revelations about the scale of the $1 billion fraud for a COVID-era food relief program are new, as is the claim that some of the money flowed back to the Somali terrorist organization. But House Republicans have been onto Walz and Minnesota over its leaky aid programs for months. Last year, Republicans on the House Education Workforce Committee issued a subpoena to Walz for records, though it's unclear what information, if any, his office provided. A rep for that panel didn't immediately respond to a request for comment. I guess not. Nobody's doing their job. Okay, so the House Oversight probe comes following prosecutions of 78 scammers, often from Somalia, who took Minnesota taxpayers' money as part of what the feds have called the Feeding Our Future fraud scandal. So the ploy, according to prosecutors, involved funneling money from state social service coffers, including the Department of Human Services and Department of Ed, to the nonprofit Feeding Our Future. This was a fake nonprofit, and other organizations to ostensibly feed school children. Don't you love it? It's all about the children. Hillary always cared about the children. Instead, their depraved and brazen plot used the funds to splurge on the lavish lifestyles of the nonprofit workers, including brand new fancy cars and real estate holdings as far away as Turkey and Kenya. Between April 2020 and January 2022, prosecutors said the FBI raided the fake nonprofit the same month and it later dissolved. Funny how that happened. Many of the reimbursement claims from the organization were sent to state departments and then on to federal agencies such as USDA. A whistleblower X account purported to be 500 employees with Minnesota Department of Human Services. So 500 employees have now become whistleblowers to come forward. When they tried to do it before, they turned these Somali thugs on them. We let Tim Walz know of fraud early on, hoping for a partnership in stopping fraud, but no, we got the opposite response. So this is going to get ugly and it's going to get bad for Timmy. All right, take two. White House releases perfect Trump MRI results, shaming Democrats who spread health trouble rumors. The White House released the results of President Donald Trump's latest MRI after failed vice president candidate Tim Walz, again, as well as members of the establishment media, called for its release. The establishment media have obsessed about the results after Trump revealed in October that he had an MRI, which he said at the time came back perfect. This has been a sticking point for the left, and Governor Walz even used it as a retort after Trump referred to him as seriously retarded for his immigration policies. However, the speculation ends today. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said during Monday's press briefing that the team was releasing the results as she spoke, and she read part of the summary from Trump's physician. I'll read it for you, and then you'll get it physically as well, she said, reading from the summary, which explained that Trump got the MRI because men in his age group benefit from a thorough evaluation of cardiovascular and abdominal health. In all, the commander-in-chief's cardiovascular imaging was perfectly normal, and his cardiovascular system shows excellent health. His abdominal imaging also was described as perfectly normal. You'd think the Dems would shut up after they covered up a candidate in full-flown dementia the whole time, and they lied about it along with their friends in the media. And I hope there are chains for them too. Take three. Seditious 6. Okay, GOP Rep Mast is reporting on this, and the Seditious 6 are all over the mainstream media saying Trump's a dictator, and this is incredible that people who served in the military should be being threatened like this. Guess what? It's called sedition. So let's look at it a little bit. During this week's broadcast of Fox News Channel Sunday Night in America, Brian Mast, Republican from Florida, the chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, said the propaganda video from the so-called Seditious 6 Capitol Hill lawmakers was intentionally an effort to create revolt within the U.S. armed forces. That's it. That's all we need to prove. According to Mast, such an indiscretion rises to the level of sedition under the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Arizona Senator Mark Kelly said he had given too much to this country to be silenced by bullies who care more about their own power than prosecuting the Constitution. Host Trey Gowdy said, Chairman, there are few people still alive who gave more to this country than you did. He's speaking to Mast. Do you feel bullied on or forced to violate the Constitution? Mast replied, in no way, shape, or form. I also just returned from the Gulf where I was speaking to many, many service members down there. I can't say how many, but many service members down there. They couldn't be more proud than to be serving under the Trump administration. Heard from countless of them that had President Trump. Not one of them were going to exit the military, whether retirement or just get out. They couldn't be more proud to be serving there. As you bring it to Kelly, despicable other members that did those videos about not adhering to illegal orders, despicable members, because not one of them was out there saying, listen, I'm worried about you as a service member, that if you do this action, you may end up in Fort Leavenworth breaking big rocks into little rocks. None of them gave any examples of that. They wanted one thing and one thing alone, he added. They were trying to create revolt within the United States Armed Forces, which absolutely rises to the level of sedition under the UCMJ. That's it. At some point, we got to stop talking about this stuff and start prosecuting, because these people are making faces all day, and the mainstream media is giving every one of them a soapbox for as long as they want it. And all they do is trash talk the current administration all day. Okay? Let's take it to a military tribunal. You can't take it to the courts. It's all leftist appointees. So, they knocked Alina Habba out again, out of New Jersey. She's going to have to go to the Supreme Court. All of this stuff is just eating time and stalling so that they can get organized with their rent-a-riot thing and all these, like the election tomorrow in Tennessee. They're pouring millions into that thing to try to flip Tennessee blue and to point to Trump and say, you see, it's all over for you, Orange Man. All right, take 4. UK abolishing trial by jury. You just can't make it up. That place is done. It is so done. Used to be the greatest power on earth. It's over for those fools. Freedom of speech will be under even greater threat if the British government is able to do away with jury trials for almost all cases, because legal studies show a judge sitting alone is far more likely to convict defendants in free speech than juries, the Free Speech Union warns. All right, so the Free Speech Union warns the United Kingdom risks losing a check on governmental power and arbitrary justice in the biggest assault on our liberties in 800 years if the government is able to push ahead this week with plans said to be looking at abolishing the right to a trial by jury in all but the most serious cases, such as murder, rape, terrorism, and others. They're arresting people for praying outside silently. I mean, they've gone full on nuts over there. For many other criminal cases where defendants face considerable jail time, the chance to have their guilt assessed by their peers hangs in the balance as Justice Secretary David Lammy looks for a cut-cost way to clear a backlog of cases, and the union warns freedom of expression cases are particularly threatened. That's the one they're going after. It's not about cutting costs. They don't care. In statistics cited by the FSU and reproduced by the Daily Telegraph, the union said legal studies have found defendants in free speech cases are twice as likely to be acquitted by a jury than those who had sat in a court without a jury. A statement by the union said, according to legal studies, jury trials provide a more balanced outcome with higher acquittal rates in cases that might otherwise be influenced heavily by prosecutorial bias. The legal studies cited are said to have found that in cases over the past 10 years, 16% of defendants using freedom of speech as a defense were acquitted when brought before a magistrate's court, where the bench both heard evidence and decides the guilt. In Crown courts, where there are juries, 28% were cleared. So 16 versus 28. That's why they want to prosecute all this free speech stuff. Even more strikingly, when looking at the most recent cases, pertinent evidence given the recent surge in so-called hate crime, speech, and political prosecutions, juries considering a not guilty plea for speech offenses acquitted 75% of the time in the past 12 months. And that's why they're doing away with jury trials, because the elites want it their way. All right, take 5. This is actually a follow-up on that, because of all the insanity that they're doing over there, they're going to disappear. Renowned international relations scholar John Mearsheimer warns Brussels that Europe's geopolitical relevance is collapsing. Collapsing. I think it's past tense. Europe's ruling class received a brutal wake-up call last month when renowned American scholar John Mearsheimer addressed the European Parliament at the invitation of the Flemish nationalists of Vlaams Belang. That's in Flemish. I don't know what it means. Speaking bluntly, he argued that the war in Ukraine has not just devastated Ukraine, it has accelerated the collapse of Europe's geopolitical relevance. For Mearsheimer, the continent is in serious danger, and the decline is overwhelmingly the result of political delusions held by Europe's entrenched globalist establishment. They're all going down the toilet. He reminded the audience that Europe's post-World War II stability didn't come from Brussels slogans or EU treaties, but from American military power and the security umbrella of NATO. That era, he said, is over. With the rise of China and the reassertion of Russia, the global order is now multipolar, and Washington will no longer subsidize Europe's security while European elites moralize about rules-based order. In his view, the U.S. must concentrate on competing with China, managing Middle East instability, leaving Europe a far lower priority than at any point since the Cold War. Meanwhile, Mearsheimer dismissed the cartoonish propaganda portraying Russia as the unstoppable juggernaut preparing to conquer Europe. What a joke. Moscow, he argued, has neither the population nor the industrial base to dominate the continent. So shut up about that. The U.S. justification for permanently garrisoning Europe, keeping Russia out, is therefore collapsing on its own terms. At the heart of this lecture was a position he has held for years. The Ukraine war was ignited by the West's reckless push to drag Ukraine into NATO. Thank you, Gloria Nuland, despite countless warnings from diplomats, scholars, and even past U.S. ambassadors. Those cats are toast. All right. Thanks, Mearsheimer. Somebody speaking clearly. Take 6. This is our advanced reprobate mind studies, and wow, we got 3 groups all being studied at one time. Let's start with the main proponent. Luigi Mangione is back, and he's got his eyebrows waxed for the occasion. He's so concerned about his life, right? The New York press cannot get enough of this guy, like he's Elvis Presley. And then the fanboys and fangirls line it up for blocks to try to get in to see this guy in the courtroom, as sick as you want to be. This guy is a back-shooting soy Robin Hood, And all these goofballs in this town cannot get enough of him. Accused Ivy League assassin Luigi Mangione appeared in Manhattan court Monday looking preppy for his key pretrial evidence hearing with his trademark bushy eyebrows carefully manicured as he smirked and furiously scribbled notes. He got him waxed. He's such a fop. The 27-year-old former prep school scholar, dressed in a gray suit over a Tattersall white and red checkered collared shirt, was led into the room through a side door before taking a seat at the defense table for the start of the proceedings. Dozens of fans who say they consider him akin to a national hero for trying to take on the broken U.S. healthcare system by shooting a CEO in the back. Great job taking it on. How much was fixed by that? How many millions will New York City lose now? Even though he allegedly killed the head of a major company in the process, they flocked to the courthouse in support of him. Some were dressed as the Luigi character from Super Mario. It's so cute. You wouldn't think we were talking about shooting somebody in the back and killing them. All right, the clean-cut Mangione, the scion of a wealthy Maryland family and former high school valedictorian at the Tony Gilman School, appeared to have had his thick brows waxed for the occasion. Of course he did. Probably had something else waxed. He broadly grinned his way through parts of the proceeding, looked quizzical at other times, and rested his head in his left hand as surveillance footage showed his sensational arrest at the McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania. Wow. Prosecutors are expected to call more than 24 witnesses involved in the December 2024 bust on charges of executing the head of healthcare giant United Healthcare on a Midtown sidewalk. The hearing will probe whether police breached, listen up on this, the hearing is going to probe whether police breached Mangione's rights by questioning him and searching his backpack before getting a warrant. You hear it? It's right there. They're going to let the dude off. They're going to let him off. It's unbelievable. If Judge Gregory Caro sides with the defense, he could deal Manhattan prosecutors a crippling blow by barring them from showing jurors the key evidence cops found inside the backpack, including the murder weapon and a notebook in which Mangione reportedly explained his motives. All right, what are you going to do with that? Those people all are broken-minded, every single one of them. And you wouldn't believe what it's like to be there when anything Luigi Mangione comes on. It's like Elvis has returned. It's just absolutely soy boy insanity. That's all you can say, let alone, does anyone have a moral compass anywhere in this whole thing? No. But it's given me an idea. And that is, if I don't get some great performance, likes, pushing us out, I'm going to get my eyebrows waxed. And then you'll see it. Every time you go for the news, you're going to see me. I'm going to be like Luigi, right? And I can come up with a Tattersall shirt too. I don't have to wear these elegant duds all the time. But you do your thing. I'm going to do my thing. And I'm going to really do my thing right now. I'm going to ask each and every one of you to take a moment from your busy day and pray for Andrew Wolfe, okay, serving our country and getting bushwhacked by some goofball who never should have been here in the first place. Be that as it may, he's improving because of the prayers of so many people. And I was involved in that all over the Thanksgiving weekend because I was with people who are related to Andrew. So let's keep it up, okay? God is showing us that everybody doesn't have to die in this deal. It's terrible that young girl did. And so put your hands together, pray to God Almighty that Andrew will continue to show more and more cogent signs of healing so that he can get back to his life. And I want all of you to be dominant in your life. And so I'm going to ask God Almighty, the omniscient God of the universe, to please spread out his arms over each and every one of us and to bless us starting this Tuesday morning. Bless Andrew Wolfe, and God bless all of you. God bless you, and thank you for being here this morning.